interesting series coming up here. We have two players who are kind of pride themselves on different styles of winning. Pinpingho obviously really values playing Shaman. He likes innovating. That's kind of his thing, whereas obviously Ostkaka comes from a pedigree of being one of those really high-skilled technical players. So two different, very different styles. I want to see how it turns out.
Absolutely.
And at the end, both the players are really skilled. I mean, I can't say that one person's technical level is greater than the others. They're both really good. And it really comes down to the deck list that they're bringing. We see that Ostkaka is kind of bringing a lineup similar to Tice, where he's bringing Patron Warrior and Freeze Mage as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to see if he can follow in Tice's footsteps to the semifinals.
On the other hand, there is the Shaman from pinpingho. But the big question, I think, is what does their Hearthstone say, and what do they say through the gameplay? Because pinpingho is from Taiwan, and he wants to prove himself to his countrymen through the game itself. I think they don't respect him that much. So, you know, through the gameplay and through qualifying here and winning the World Championship, he wants to say to reach their hearts with the game itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he wasn't born in Taiwan, he was born in the States. And, you know, sometimes, since you're not a true Taiwanese, you know, you might get some people feeling otherwise. But he's here to play the game. He's here to prove himself that, you know, he belongs in the top Hearthstone players in the world. And, you know, he's brought Shaman. He's really confident with it. And he plays a lot of Shaman. So we're going to see some very crazy combos, hopefully.
Absolutely. Robert, what does Ostkaka's Hearthstone say?
I think, like I said, he comes from a group of players that all practice and scrimmage together a lot, and their big thing is just not misplaying, right? They go in there, they bring decks that they found to be extremely powerful, and the goal is to just not, you know, be affected by nerves, not be affected by other considerations, and just really have strong play throughout the series.
All right, makes a lot of sense. All right, guys, game one is ready. Ostkaka versus pinpingho, Warrior versus Druid. Let's look at the hands.
Yeah, pinpingho's hand is looking pretty good. He has the Innovate and the Wild Growth. Usually, Ancient of Lore is pretty good against, you know, games that go pretty long. So, you know, if pinpingho feels like that the Patron Warrior is not going to establish a lot of creatures at turn 5, then he can keep that for, you know, card draw. But he's going to look for some early plays.
Right, so ever since, obviously, Warsong Commander was changed, Grim Patron's identity as a deck has changed with it. And I've talked to a lot of players who are still playing it competitively, and they say that this is actually one of the best matchups. Mid-range Druid specifically, they feel they have a great leg up against it, that they can basically outscale the Druid in terms of burst damage, combo notwithstanding. So Ostkaka has to feel pretty confident about this matchup. And for pinpingho, as you guys pointed out, incredible opening hand. Just he's going to accelerate to, you know, really high mana totals quickly. He's going to be able to play a lot of what comes off the top of his deck very shortly. So very good opening hands for both players, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like Ostkaka is ending in a good matchup, especially after the recent additions of the bigger cards like Sludge Belcher. Is he running Sludge Belchers as well?
Well, here we see actually he has had Lothar in his hand, and it's going to be, you know, a very formidable minion. 5/5 is exactly what you want against a Druid, because Swipe doesn't clear it, Wrath Hero Power doesn't clear it. It's going to do something.
I was gonna say, I think Sludge Belcher's inclusion is kind of a more recent thing. And when these players submitted these deck lists, this was back in the time where I think the main difference is you were seeing Shredders, Lotheb, and Dr. Boom.
And Grommash.
Yeah, Grommash is thrown in there as well as the finisher. And it's a very powerful deck in its own right. The biggest difference, aside from, you know, obviously just crazy damage all in one turn, is you have to really make careful decision making as far as how greedy you're willing to be. Because the core theme of the deck is still drawing a bunch of cards, having that card advantage, and leveraging it to win the game.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting deck, but on the other hand, Druid can stop it. As you mentioned, Robert, it's a really good start with the ramp, and originally, how Druid was stopping Patron was just with the minions. Just drop as many minions as possible in the beginning of the game so that Patron can't go with the Patron Whirlwind effect to get a couple of dudes on the board. Just counter that with your own minions.
Right, and for Ostkaka now, he got that Death Bite in the opening hand, which every single mulligan guide I've read now for this deck just basically says you hard mulligan for weapons. That's all you look for, because the Death Bite, the Fiery War Axes allow you to 2-for-1. You can leverage your health total as a resource, get rid of other minions off the board, and Ostkaka's obviously got 2 weapons in hand, so he's in a pretty good spot, although he was not able to deal with Darnassus Aspirant, and Darnassus Aspirant staying on the board could prove problematic.
Yeah, but pinpingho unfortunately can't really use that mana crystal that's provided by Darnassus Aspirant right now, so he's just going to continue wrapping up and hope for some bigger minions that perhaps will come later down the line. But yeah, speaking about the Death Bite, I mean, what else do you want to do as a warrior? It's turn 4, right? You just want to play the Death Bite, it's such a strong card. So we can also see that that's why that's the only 4-drop in the deck usually.
Aside from Shredder.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah. Shredder is a little bit more of a proactive play, but the Death Bite just has so much immediate effect on the board.
So at the moment, Ostkaka has the Death Spite that you guys mentioned. He has Patron as well. He's looking for an Inner Rage on or a Whirlwind. He has the coin as well, so on 5. If he develops a Death Spite on 4, he will be able to follow up with Patron into coin Whirlwind on maybe Inner Rage. His plan is to have those Patrons as soon as possible on the board and clear the board as he goes.
Exactly. Very difficult for a Druid to deal with such a big patron board, right? Swipe deals 1 damage to a patron that's perhaps not at 1 health, and it's just going to cause more problems. So that's exactly the game plan.
You know, for pinpingho, he's in the position where, obviously, when you're the Druid, you want your Innervates, you want your Wild Growths, you want your Dynasis Aspirants because you want to ramp up, but there's a point where you maybe have too much ramp. You're not drawing into enough threats, and Druid kind of, I still think, has to be the aggressor in this matchup.
Yeah.
Because over time, the Patron will use stuff like weapons, those mid-range drops, and then obviously, as you pointed out, Grommash to seal the game. Very advantageous for pinpingho that he got that Ancient of Lore.
That's
he can
so
innervate
huge.
straight into it. He puts a 5/5 on the board, gonna draw cards, obviously, since he can't heal himself. So this was a great draw for pinpingho, and I think this was kind of that last turn where he was either going to get the threat or fall way too far behind.
Yeah, this was the exact moment when he needed it because he is, as you mentioned, the beatdown. He needs to be aggressive. Not only Grommash is the good finisher for the Patron deck, the fact that you have a Battle Rage, is he running Battle Rage, this version? That might be the version with the Battle Rage, so really similar, where you have all the draw. So if Druid goes card by card with the Patron will outvalue Druid in the end.
Yeah, Patron still requires the Battle Rage to cycle a lot of cards. Obviously, you can get some off Acolyte of Pain, Slam, but Battle Rage is where you're going to have those turns where you can potentially, after making Patrons, draw upwards of 4 or 5 cards.
I really like the fact that even though Warzone Commander got changed, we still see Patron as a valid deck, and it got a bit better, I think.
Yeah, it got a little bit more strategic since your patrons do not necessarily have charge right now. You do need to set up for the next turn and, you know, kind of predict what your opponent's going to do in response to it.
All right, so for pinpingho, it seems like Azure Drake might be the play to draw the card, but on the other hand, there is the Death Spite that's going to deal with it easily. Is there anything else you guys would see as a good play here?
Well, he does have 2 Big Game Hunters. He could just throw down one of those for fodder against the Death Spite because one of the valuable key things about Azure Drake is that it does give the spell power bonus to swipe, and it could clear a lot of patrons. Especially if it's only on a board of 4 patrons, right? One's 3 health, one's 2 health, and the other's at 1 health. That's like the perfect way to deal with that.
On the other hand, you have to expect Dr. Boom and Grommash from this deck as well. So both Big Game Hunters will provide a huge tempo swing if they reach their target.
I actually really like the idea of seeing a Big Game Hunter come out on the last turn because you kind of put him in a position where, you know, he either has to waste a second weapon charge or find an Inner Rage, something, he's going to have to use another resource that he doesn't want to use. Obviously, we see pinpingho chooses to go for the Drake. That's completely fine. You put it down. That's 4 damage that if Ostkaka chooses to swing into it, he's going to have to take. You get a card off of it, and you just kind of wait for that weapon to go away, and then you can start playing down stuff like Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, I like Azure Drake in a way that it actually forces the attack. Like, you can't leave Azure Drake on board. You have to do something with it.
That's true.
And maybe that's not the turn that pinpingho wants to go with the Patrons. And looking at his hand, it is not the turn. Just getting 2 Patrons will be easy to clear. Oh, he's actually going for the Patron here.
Right. I mean, you might as well, right? You have a coin Dr. Boom, which is a very solid turn 6 play. So you might as well create a little bit of disruption for your opponent's plans.
That's really brave. This means that he is not afraid of Keeper of the Grove and Wrath, maybe. Is there a good way to clear those Patrons?
That's something else to consider, is pinpingho's on 7 mana this turn. With nothing else on the board, clearing the Patrons, it required him to have very specific answers. It basically kind of has to be something like Wrath Swipe
Right.
to get those off the board cleanly.
Savage Roar and Swipe as well.
Right, sure. So but it required very specific answers, and since he had nothing on the board, Druid actually, once you get past the mana acceleration, is a pretty honest deck. It does a lot of trades, it has some direct damage, but other than that, it doesn't have like any super fancy Blade Flurry combos or anything like that. So I do like that play from Ostkaka. I think it's completely fine, and we see here pinpingho doesn't necessarily have a super intuitive way to deal with this.
Yeah, the thing is, like, he can use Savage Roar and Swipe, but on the other hand, he's seen Ostkaka not using any Whirlwind effects.
Right.
So he might feel like, hey, maybe he doesn't have that Inner Rage. He doesn't have Inner Rage. He doesn't have the Whirlwind as well. So those Patrons are gonna stay as long as I'm not gonna play something big. So, and he goes for Druid of the Claw exactly because of that.
It's so risky. It's such a risky line of play, though.
Right.
One where he could very, very easily get punished by Ostkaka if Ostkaka has those mechanics in his hand. All right, let's see what he gets here.
It might be a bit greedy, but it's something that may pay off, and he's also expecting Dr. Boom. There is the coin,
Right.
so he knows that if Dr. Boom comes down, this Patron is just gonna die to the cat, and he has the Big Game Hunter ready.
Yeah,
Right.
so because you can coin out Dr. Boom, then it's totally reasonable. The Patron thing didn't necessarily pan out, but it didn't hurt you much either. You obviously got the 1 free Patron off of the original Patron, So the idea that the Druid of the Claw trades into one, it actually comes out fairly evenly.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool that Patron Warriors are starting to, turn to other win conditions now that the Warsong Commander is not available. You have Dr. Broom, you have Grommash, so it's definitely more board-centric and very interactive,
Yeah, that's a lot more interaction going on there. So speaking of interaction, that cat's about to get interacted off the board.
Yeah, executed fully. Ostkaka recognizes that Big Game Hunter is a possibility. That's why he goes for Lothab and Patron, trying to protect his Patron here. Also, there is a lot of all the cards we mentioned, being the cards to counter Patron, were spells.
That's obviously 2 damage or 2 health Patron, easily removed by Keeper of the Grove. So pinpingho just goes ahead, gets it away. He doesn't have to deal with it anymore. Doesn't have to worry about Whirlwind, Inner Rage, those kind of things coming out. And he really had limited options anyway as far as what he could do because of the Lothab effect.
Yeah.
So.
I love this Big Game Hunter play. It basically says that, Ostkaka, you have to clear both my minions to ensure that you do not get killed by combo, which he already has in his hand. So Ostkaka just can't play develop Dr. Broom, for example, and stay alive, because it's not possible.
And pinpingho does have the combo. He does have double swipe as well, so he is in a great position to rush Ostkaka. Ostkaka doesn't have the way to... Well, he can clear, but it's not really a winning play. He is behind. He is trying to stabilize.
Right, and this is the point as the Druid player where, as Amaz points out, you can just keep putting out minions as you get them, and the onus is on the other player to clear them every single time, or else you're just going to kill them. And interesting point, compared to your older Patron list prior to the Warsong Commander nerf, you don't see Shield Block anymore. And Shield Block was really good for dealing with Druids because it gives you that 5 armor immediately. It helps you cycle to other cards, but since that's been cut from the list, that's it's just actually more HP that the Warrior doesn't have access to.
Absolutely.
And Ostkaka realizes, the danger of just losing the game right now. Gonna spend the coin for the hero power for that 2 extra health, and it's gonna save him here.
If he would not do that play, he was dead.
Yeah.
That was 20 points of damage incoming.
I mean, obviously, the main win condition is not being dead. So
right.
Ostkaka electing to not die is going to help him in the future.
The main win condition is killing your opponent, but then, you also have a second condition that you can't die first.
Well, you can't do that if you're dead.
Exactly.
So you got to stay alive first, so then you can kill your opponent.
Right. And
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And Ostkaka, I think, also realizes that pinpingho playing the Big Game Hunter means that his hand is like, perhaps not the best, so the combo has a bigger possibility of being in.
The big question is, what do you do now as pinpingho? You can combo, but I think Armor Smith is something you absolutely need to kill. On the other hand, you have the swipe as well. Does double swipe make any sense?
Yeah, you kind of do have to clear the Armor Smith. It does represent, a lot of health, especially with all the Whirlwind effects. So we'll see how he chooses to deal with this.
It looks like he might just actually ignore the Armor Smith for now.
Wow.
The left off the board. Just hero power here, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
With this means like Ostkaka will be at 16 health, and then there is 14 damage from the combo, 4 from the Big Game Hunter. So pinpingho is setting a trap. If Ostkaka kills Big Game Hunter with the weapon and just armors up, combo will be enough to finish the game.
All right. Luckily for Ostkaka, he got a Dread Corsair. A 1-mana 3/3 taunt is pretty good. And he can even play that with Dr. Broom if he chooses to go a little bit more risky.
Well, after seeing double Big Game Hunter, you could probably play it safely.
I mean, you do need to develop minions on the board to win the game. But really depends on what line he chooses. He could just, in a sense, fatigue the Druid out of his cards so that he just win with minions regardless in the end. Or he can just choose to take a stand here and develop the 7/7 and 2 Boombots.
Right, so for pinpingho, the name of the game just continues to be try to get your opponent to a point where they can no longer deal with minions, or you have enough guaranteed damage. And the Armor Smith without a bunch of minions on the board isn't actually representing too much health per turn right now, because obviously Armor Smith, the effect only benefits when you have minions, so... Yep. Sets up a wall there, and yeah, he's going to play that Dr. Broom, because at some point he has to try to win this.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this, he also knows he's not dead to combo.
Now, that's the problem with leaving up an Armor Smith. Effectively, all your minions gain Death Rattle, gain and armor, right? So right now, pinpingho's swipe is not looking too good. He might have to find something a little bit more creative.
The big question is, does he have a choice to do anything else?
I love watching Ostkaka play this deck because there are so many decisions involved in playing this deck correctly these days, and Ostkaka's such a good decision maker. He kind of, again, going back to coining out the hero power to survive, plays down the Dread Corsair, plays down a bunch of minions around it to where, again, The Armorsmith can really profit from that, get him a bunch of HP, and pinpingho's sitting there with a lot of damage in hand, but there's no real way to just immediately do anything. He has to get through that Dread Corsair, and then he probably has to kill the Armorsmith, and yeah, I guess in this situation, pinpingho might actually come into a little bit of trouble because he did not choose to clear the Armorsmith the turn before.
Ostkaka is so patient. Oh wow, pinpingho is going for double swipe on Dr. Boom, I believe. That's a lot of armor.
That's right. The Armorsmith is effectively getting 8 procs and still stays alive.
So pinpingho goes for the play to clear the board and give himself more time. He is the beatdown when he realizes that at this point, just needs to clear the way for his minions. And if he has a big Dread of the Claw next turn, maybe that'll be enough to stop Ostkaka.
Yeah, so we see the Frothing come off the top for Ostkaka, and Frothing Berserker extremely powerful still in its own right, but it's kind of one of those things where in this situation, it doesn't go fast anymore. So it's gonna have to wait a turn before it does something, and you know, we see that pinpingho, while he may not necessarily want to do it, does have tools to deal with something like a Frothing Berserker.
Be thirsty.
Yeah, this means like Ostkaka is gonna just develop the board, play a couple of minions, have more of them. Acolyte Pain can draw him cards, interact with Grim Patron, and you know, it's some damage as well. Even though those minions are small, they are dealing damage, and if he picks up a Whirlwind, this will empower the Floating Berserker here.
Yeah, even small creatures like the Acolyte, which is just a 1/3, is very annoying for a Druid to clear with because, you know, usually they do a lot of damage to one creature and try and kill it that way, but we can see that Force of Nature, Savage Roar is so inefficient in dealing with these, you know, small creatures.
Yeah, Whirlwind would be the dream draw for Ostkaka with the 2 Acolytes down, the Frothing Berserker, draw a bunch of cards, activate your Berserker to your way big.
Shall I strike?
So, yeah. I think this is a totally reasonable play. You just have to get that Berserker off the board. But, you know, pinpingho as the Druid player is now playing from behind. He's just answering threats, which is not where he wants to be against the Patron Warrior.
Yeah, and Ostkaka actually has more cards in his hands than appears because he does have those Acolytes. And in a rage, he can even draw more cards.
Or you could play it on Grim Patron.
Yeah,
That's
Inner Rage
true.
Patron seems really strong.
Yeah.
Especially because Druid is running out of cards. So you might put pinpingho in a position where he needs to use the combo to clear the patrons. So right now the game plan is changing for pinpingho because, as you mentioned, Robert, he's playing from behind. So now instead of just trying to rush Warrior, he'll try to eliminate all the threats that Warrior has in their deck.
Right. And we see he is going with, as Ahmad said, that Inner Rage on the Acolyte, which is totally reasonable. He's going to draw some cards. Ends up getting 2 cards off that Acolyte. Do a second Inner Rage. Now, I would be curious if he chooses to use that second Inner Rage on the other Acolyte, because I really feel like the Patron play is what needs to be done here. What do you guys think?
I think Ostkaka's mind right now is running through if his opponent has combo.
Right.
And combo is an efficient way to deal with Grim Patron, right? That's really the only tools that Druid has. So he thinks he has it in his hand. He's just going to hold off. Draw top deck the Battle Rage there and refill his hand to...
He has a
You know,
25.
Cards, yeah.
25 points of health with the armor. If he armors up even more, he doesn't have to. He's absolutely safe beyond the combo range. And this board threatens to...
Yeah, pinpingho's face really says it all. He's like, oh, that armor. No, I didn't want him to get this much armor, but yeah. Ostkaka firmly in the driver's seat now, totally protected. There's really nothing pinpingho can pull out as the Druid player to do any kind of a significant threatening to Ostkaka's
maybe
position.
Doomsayer, Robert. Is it Doomsayer time?
Yeah, in Bleak's moments like this, then you just have to play Doomsayer.
Yeah, well, let's see what's driving the Shredder. I would be surprised if he doesn't go for that, because that's kind of what he needs to be doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, you take every chance you get, right? As slim as it might be. You know, sometimes it happens.
All right, so pinpingho is going for the combo to clear the minions. Now the sequence.
Oh wow, he's actually clearing it the hard way.
Well, that's obviously, it gives him the more, there's a way better probability of him winning the game, clearing minions off the board, I think, than looking for a Doomsayer and a Shredder.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that because Ostkaka will be sitting at, you know, 5 cards after the Acolyte draws a card. So, you know, it might be hard to come back at that point. So, we'll see if it pays off for him.
Well, we do know now that there was a dog somehow driving a Shredder.
This one, Armorsmith, survived for so many turns.
Yep.
MVP, well, I wish we could see the damage that has been tallied up by that Armorsmith.
All right,
damage
guys.
and then the HP generated. But
This is it. Romash Ostkaka is gonna seal the game number 1 and take it from pinpingho. So Ostkaka is 1-0. Second match.
yeah, and that run really came down to Ostkaka making all the right decisions when he needed to, understanding what his win conditions were, even at points kind of deciding towards the end there, I just need to get to more cards, I'll get to more cards and I'll find my answer. I don't necessarily need to make a bunch of patrons, so good on Ostkaka. And for pinpingho, I'm sure he's going to look back at that turn where he chose not to clear the armor smith and maybe rethink that one. Like, was that something I should have done? Was I okay with that play?
Yeah, that armor smith at the end of the day gained so much armor that you know Ostkaka just went out of reach from pinpingho. And of course, like you said, Robert, the 2 patron play on turn 5 was very impressive. Usually, you just want to get as many patrons as you can, but you know, Ostkaka realizes that 2 is fine against the matchup.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like the matchup was in favor of Ostkaka, so just using the cards that were in his deck, he was able to set up a really good control and win in the end. Cards like Battle Rage were really useful. The fact how he was using Inner Rages to draw the cards as well, to set up to draw into Kuramash and Whirlwind. He knew exactly what he had in his deck and what was left, so a pretty impressive game.
Yeah, very well played by Ostkaka. So.
All right, so what do you guys think is gonna be the next choice of the decks for those guys?
It's hard to guess at this moment, but Ostkaka really favors Freeze Mage, though. We'll see if he goes with that next.
All right. Well, we sat down with pinpingho to see what he has to say, so let's check that out.
My name is pinpingho. I'm 28 years old, and I'm representing Taiwan. Because we don't have our own tournament in Taiwan, we have to participate in tournament in Europe or NA. Basically, we have our daily schedule completely upside down. We sleep at day and play Hearthstone tournament at night. The first tournament that I won was Intel Cyber League in Taiwan. I wasn't even going to participate in that day, but they told me there was a space open for me, and I just joined it and won it by accident. One of the biggest obstacles I have this year is my team White Spider was disbanded a couple of months ago. I got a very good teammate, Roger, team manager Mao Mao. If they have just sponsored me for a couple more months, I would have represent White Spider here at BlizzCon. A lot of people think Shaman is really bad, and they always laugh at me if I lose with my Shaman. They think Shaman is not a good class. When people told me that I should not bring Shaman to BlizzCon, I actually feel pretty insulted because I play Shaman so much, and I know Shaman so much more about than they do. If I win BlizzCon, I think Blizzard should add a new Shaman skin featuring pinpingho myself. Many Taiwanese fans doesn't want to support me, but I still make it here at BlizzCon Top 8. And I will prove to them I'm good. 对各位支持我的粉丝呢，我很感谢各位大家的支持。至于那些不支持我的粉丝呢，我也还是要感谢你，因为你们给予我的负面能量，一直是我向前的动力。
You just gotta laugh, pinpingho. He's such a great guy, right?
Yeah, the positive energy for him really has been infectious. And, a lot of times when you come into Hearthstone tournaments, it's easy to see players you don't recognize, and you're like, I don't necessarily feel like a strong attachment to this player, or, they're not saying anything that's super resonating with me. But pinpingho, the whole shaman role play, being super confident, the being undaunted in the face of, as he said, people laughing at him when he loses with shaman. Very, very interesting individual, and one you can't help but root for.
He's proving himself. And Amas, what do you think about him winning a tournament by accident?
Oh, I mean, I don't think it's an accident. I just think he's very humble. He's a really good player. That's why he's here in the top 8, and we're sitting here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing a shaman play, and looking forward to seeing the shaman skin as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Wins the whole thing.
I hope we actually add it at some point.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure at this point Thrall's actually just an alternate skin for pinpingho.
Oh wow.
So, pinpingho is the default shaman hero.
That might be the case, but here we see the tables have turned. Ostkaka is gonna play the Freeze Mage, and pinpingho is gonna queue the Druid again. And we know that Druid is a little bit of a favorite, against the Freeze Mage.
I think this game might decide the whole match, because looking at the lineups, Freeze Mage might struggle versus Druid, might struggle versus Hybrid Hunter that pinpingho's bringing, and versus Shaman as well. For Ostkaka, the best shot with the Freeze Mage is to actually get the Shaman, but here he got the Druid, and as you mentioned, Druid is actually favored.
I want to point out, though, you say like, oh, he would want to get Shaman into Freeze Mage, but pinpingho is no stranger to beating Freeze Mage with Shaman, so...
Absolutely. So it's not a great matchup for Ostkaka as well.
Right.
Ostkaka really needs to win at least one game with that Freeze Mage. So what do you guys think Ostkaka needs to get to win versus Druid?
I mean, Ostkaka's hand is looking pretty good, right? You really want to not see any secrets. You only want to see them from your Mad Scientist. You want the early draw engines like Loot Hoarder, like Acolyte Pain that he has right now. And anytime Ostkaka gets a Frost Nova, he can just Frost Nova and Doomsayer. Of course, Keeper of the Grove is kind of like the trump card from the Druid, but you have two right now. And he can even play both of the Doomsayers without a Frost Nova, and Druids sometimes struggle to deal 14 damage.
Right, and we see Ostkaka's opening hand obviously has a lot of Doom in it. There's a lot of Doom going on that hand, but there's also some upside. There's Loot Hoarder. Loot Hoarder and Acolyte of Pain are kind of low mana minions that you can put on the board. They can kind of jockey for position on the board. And more importantly, pinpingho has to deal with them as opposed to hitting, Ostkaka in the face, which, as a Freeze Mage, the longer you can keep the Druid distracted before it starts comboing you, starts playing those mid-range minions into your face, the better off you're ultimately going to be.
Yeah, you just want to chip the armor as well, because Druid can armor up later in the game, which makes the combo pretty hard. If you have 15 damage exactly, and Druid is like 15 plus 3 armor.
Right.
And pinpingho's hand is pretty awkward right now. You don't really want to innovate the Keeper of the Grove. You want to keep it for silencing a Doomsayer, or you want to silence off a Frozen minion for that extra burst damage that your opponent does not expect. So I expect a hero power here and just, save his cards.
Yeah, absolutely, but it's good to take his time. He has the time and he can think about future turns as well. It's not maybe about playing, innovating anything this turn. It's all about planning the game and mapping the matchup. What do I really want to play on turn 6 or 7 versus his deck?
Right. And even if pinpingho goes into the next turn and uses that Innervate, Loatheb is not really something against a Freeze Mage you just want to throw down. You want to use it on very specific turns to try to block out reapplication of secrets, try to block out possibly lethal damage. A lot of times it actually serves as the precursor to Alex Straza in the late game because Loatheb comes down and you're like, all right, I'm just going to play my Giant Dragon.
Right. But unfortunately for pinpingho here, oh wow, the second Innervate actually opens the possibility of Ancient Floor. Instead of Loatheb. Once again, Loatheb is one of those key cards you want to, disrupt the Freeze Mage.
All right, you want Ancient of Lore, Nimsh wants Loatheb. I say we compromise, and you do Loatheb hero power.
Wow.
Yeah.
Loatheb hero power.
Because look, I mean, you're putting down a 5/5. You killed a Loot Hoarder.
Man.
That's basic Hearthstone right there. You have killed the minion, and you have played your own minion, and you are well on your way to success.
That's really tricky because I agree that Ancient of Lore is a bit better here and you want to keep Loatheb, but on the other hand, what is your follow-up? So if you innervate Ancient of Lore here, you will have the Keeper on 4, but then you don't exactly keep her.
Well, no, the thing is, like, you draw 2 cards. I mean, the possibility of drawing like a Shredder or even a Wrath, something you can use, is pretty high, right? You're drawing a total of 3 cards by the start of your next turn. And yeah, pinpingho's gonna decide to do that since his hand quality is, to be honest, quite weak. Right?
Yeah, reactive cards mostly, and cards he doesn't want to play.
And we're joking around a little bit about what he could have done on that turn, but obviously a world where you play a 5/5 and you draw 2 cards is a pretty good turn 3.
Right. And using an Innervate as a Moonfire doesn't seem like the best deal.
I mean, when you look at it like that, yeah, it's not so great when you call it a Moonfire.
Oh.
In my world, where it was just a hero power, it felt better.
But this means also that it's great news for Ostkaka because Innervate is out of the way. He knows that now Druid will have to use the standard rules of mana games. And also he knows that pinpingho's hand maybe wasn't the best after seeing a hero power and then double innervating Ancient of Lore.
Yeah, so this is, when we look at Ostkaka's hand, obviously he's got that Acolyte of Pain, which he can possibly look at putting down in the next couple turns, start pinging that to draw cards, but the rest of his hand is just designed to get rid of minions.
Oh man, the second swipe is not really good for pinpingho. He wanted that Shredder, as Amas said, and swiping face doesn't seem good, so it might actually be Shapeshift. Just the hero power, deal 1, get 1 armor. And in this matchup, armor is actually pretty good.
All right, so in the cardinal rules of Druid, you never just play out a Keeper of the Grove and hit him in the face, unless you're about to kill him, right? So otherwise, that's just not a play you would make. You're pinpingho, you're on turn 4, you're out of innervates, you know this. You have to start getting the pressure rolling, you have to put something on the board. Is there a world where you consider this turn just Keeper of the Grove in the face?
Sometimes you could. I mean, if you're feeling like you really want to, deal that 2 damage and make your Keeper of the Grove kind of like a Stormwind Knight, put on the race. But at the same time, Ostkaka is at 29 health, so
yeah,
that doesn't really make sense.
Keeper is not only useful to deal with the Doomsayer, but even if your board is frozen and Mage thinks like he's safe, you can actually unfreeze one of your minions and attack with it.
Right, exactly.
The end is coming!
So the end is coming now, and this actually is going to block pinpingho from playing a minion.
I really like this play.
Yep.
Ostkaka playing a preemptive Doomsayer. He's seen that pinpingho doesn't have a turn 4 play, and he is expecting something on turn 5, which means that do you really silence it right now?
Yeah, silencing feels really bad. It basically means that you're playing a 4-mana 2/4 with no battle cry, since the Doomsayer is basically, it just kills itself if you just leave it be. pinpingho could also choose the Wild Growth here. He can play the Ancient of Lore on the following turn, but then both of his Ancient of Lores are also gone. So Ostkaka has more information and go like, you don't have any more healing that's available in your deck. So pinpingho does decide to, put some semblance of board pressure.
I'm sure he's just happy to be able to play that Keeper of the Grove and not have to do 2 damage to the face. It feels better to silence a minion.
Oh yeah, it does feel better to actually
Right,
get some board control.
I used the minion correctly. This is what it's supposed to do.
Well, it is some board, and for Druid, if the Keeper stays alive, he will be able to deal at least some damage, and later in the game with Savage Lore, it might be deciding.
All right, we see here now, obviously anytime you get your spells discounted, it's a win. You want them to cost less. It allows you to be more flexible with your hand, but this isn't really the sort of hand I think you would want Emperor Thor's hand affecting.
Right, exactly. pinpingho doesn't know that. pinpingho thinks that, oh no, my opponent just got 6 card discounted.
Yeah.
I need to definitely get rid of this Thorazon until it gets it even more cheaper. So he's just gonna play the swipe. Unfortunately, he can't develop any minions. That's one of the drawbacks of Druid. You either play a spell or play a minion.
One spell at a time. And at this point, he is really behind. Mage has enough time to play the cards, to draw whatever he wants. He still has the draw opportunities with the Acolyte of Pain and Loot Hoarder as well. And even though he didn't exactly hit the cards he wanted, he still hit the cards that are all right. He will be able to draw those other cards once that.
Right, and something that it might not necessarily be a factor in the game, but it could become one, is the fact that pinpingho chose to silence the Doomsayer. Does mean there's just an 0-6 on the board, so if Dr. Boom comes down, it could be something that possibly soaks up Boombot damage, and Boombots against Freeze Mage are actually a very important consideration, I feel like.
Yeah, you're right, because Boombots, sometimes Freeze Mages needs to clear minions on their turn.
Right.
And when it's your turn, Secrets don't activate. So if Boombots hit you, when you have an ice block up, when you're at 1 health, you actually die.
Even if you have an ice barrier set up, maybe the bombas will actually kill you even though the ice barrier is there.
Right, but good guy Doomsayer's there. He's willing to help out. There's nothing else to do since,
Yeah, catch the bombs, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like, hey, I'll help out. His arms are outstretched in the drawing, so it makes sense.
So a trivia question, Robert. Do you know what Doomsayer says when he attacks?
Did I miss it?
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah, see, okay, I know this one.
Hey.
You know this one.
Amaz has been over the past few days questioning my Jeoparino knowledge, and he's actually mostly correct.
Okay.
My Jeoparino knowledge is nowhere close to Ben Brode's, but I do know some things. Some.
Impressive.
You didn't miss this one.
No, I did not miss this one. We see the Drake come down, hero power, you get rid of the Loot Hoarder, and pinpingho's just trying to get a foothold on the board. But it's real not friendly for him.
Yeah, he missed 2 damage, to the face of the Keeper silencing the Doomsayer, so he feels like he had to attack the face there to get it back.
Ostkaka still doesn't have the combo cards, because how he's gonna win is gonna set up a nice block, then play Alex Straza, reduce pinpingho's health to 15, and then win with fireballs, frostbolts, or just finishers that he has. For now, he has all the ways to stall, to give himself a bit more time to pick up those combo cards that I've just mentioned.
Yeah, he pretty much frees the board for 4 turns straight if he wants to.
All right.
So not really a rush for Ostkaka. And for pinpingho, when we look at his hand, it's not like there's any there's no play that just screams out at you, right? Like maybe next turn you're just going to draw some more cards. You can play down a Shredder if you wanted to, but because he spent so many turns not having a really good play or being forced to just react to something like Emperor Thor's hand, Ostkaka's firmly in the driver's seat now.
Absolutely. Ostkaka also not threatened by combo next turn. Even double Innervate is out, so he still decides to freeze the minions here. Anas, can you explain why?
Well, I'm actually very curious about this play. I'm not a Freeze Mage player, like a specialist at all myself, so yeah, I wonder what Ostkaka is thinking. He didn't drop the Doomsayer. He feels like he might want to bait out the second Keeper on his Mad Scientist, perhaps, before having the Doomsayer Frost Nova combo. And here, pinpingho doesn't really feel like he wants to use the Loatheb. The best turn to use Loatheb is usually the turn where
After
Mage has 7 mana. Because at 8 mana, the Mage can actually just Frost Nova again and completely negate the Loatheb. And that's exactly what pinpingho was thinking. He's going to drop Double Shredder, put a bigger board, and it's back to Ostkaka here.
Is he expecting Flame Strike?
I actually don't mind Frost Noving that last play. You basically spend 2 mana, to gain 6 health because you
Right.
weren't getting attacked, and that feels fine to me. I think, especially considering the contents of his hand, he had so many freezes.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where if you're going to be drawing more cards, you might even need to make room for more of your burn spells you're looking for, your Alexstrasza, your Archmage Antonidas.
Absolutely, he still had Acolyte on board as well. He knew that he's drawing these 2 cards.
So I don't necessarily mind that so much. And yeah, pinpingho just like that, you know, takes a turn and 2 shredders on board represents so much potential power.
And I do like using the Blizzard here, since Blizzards is actually very, very expensive to cast, and you want to get it out of your hand. Oh, Ostkaka's just gonna go for the face here. Gonna bluff a little bit of damage that's not necessarily in his hand right now.
I love Living Roots in the deck. I love Living Roots as a new addition to the Druid because it messes up the math a bit. You expect, when you see Druid, you expect 14 points of damage coming, and with this Living Roots with 10 mana, it's actually 16. So sometimes you try to keep yourself at 15 to be above the combo range, then bam, you're dead.
It's also just in general an extremely flexible card. It's great against aggro decks. You can use it to start pushing your own aggressive agenda if you're playing that more aggressive oriented Druid we've seen a lot of on ladder. So it's definitely a very flexible card, which fits perfectly with the mindset of Druid, which is having a lot of options on their turns.
All right, so pinpingho here, he has combo available, but it doesn't seem like a combo turn. Do we know if there are any secrets? No secrets
No,
yet.
there's no secret.
Time waits for no one.
I don't really mind the lookup too much here. It seems like Ostkaka is setting a turn where he's going to pop the Shredders and perhaps play a Flame Strike or something. And now that Lothar is down, it actually prevents Ostkaka from playing any damage board clears. He can still play the Frost Nova, but he cannot clear the board this turn.
It's always disruptive to play against Freeze Mage,
Right.
unless there's Alexstrasza. But
It's true.
if Alexstrasza is played now, then Ostkaka realizes he's probably dead.
Yeah,
He does some
he's-
trades in with the Mad Scientist here to set up the block, but
And not only that, he doesn't even have the damage to finish out his opponent if he does cast Alexstrasza. And at the end of the day, Alexstrasza is only dealing 7 damage right now.
this is actually why this matchup tends to swing so heavily into the Druid's favor, because early game, fine, you've got the board, you're putting down small minions, you're good, you're kind of fighting for the board a little bit with Loot Hoarders and Acolytes of Pain, Mad Scientist, but once you get into the mid game as the Freeze Mage, you're not really playing minions anymore. You're not playing anything that just contests the board, and you basically go into this purely reactive mode, where all you're doing is answering the board every single turn, and if you don't have the right answers when you need them, then a lot of times things go very poorly for you, and Druid more than any other class puts out so much mid-range pressure.
So just the Frost Nova, he had the Doomsayer available as well, but he knows there is the Blizzard, dealing with one shredder at a time. He's preparing for that Blizzard next turn. He still needs the burn. So if he uses Blizzard next turn, he'll be able to rank in Intellect to get those burn spells. Double Fireball, and he'll be in a great spot.
Right, and we saw when pinpingho saw the Frost Nova come out, he kind of shook his head like that was the one spell he was maybe hoping to dodge. Because as you pointed out, it was really the only thing. He'd already seen one. It was the only thing Ostkaka could have played to stop the board from doing anything the next turn. So pinpingho did not want to see that. And it kind of countered, I think, what the intended desire of his Lothar was.
Yeah, Lothar, but at this point was kind of useless.
Well,
One more turn.
it's a 5-5. You had to give yourself the opportunity to make Ostkaka have that. And since Ostkaka did have that, you know, great for Ostkaka, but pinpingho, I think that was a pretty reasonable play and gave him an opportunity to just win the game on the next turn.
Robert, do you see a good way for pinpingho to win? We know what Ostkaka is trying to do. Ostkaka is trying to draw into those burn spells. He did set up the secret, so now he can slam Alexstrasza. If he picks one of the burn spells, he'll be in a good spot. Like, he has the second ice block, so he has time to deal that damage. What pinpingho has to draw or do to win this game from this point?
I think if you're pinpingho as the Druid here, all you do is you just keep putting down minions. You keep forcing him after responses, and then the turn he doesn't have a response, you just kill him. That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And you also have the Ancient Valor for backup healing, even if the Alexstrasza comes down, to see if you can, push away from the threshold of dying.
I like that pinpingho's held on to that for as long as he's had, because obviously he's had the opportunity to use it and draw cards, which is usually what you want to do with Ancient of Lore, but understanding how Freeze Mage beats you, I've drawn enough cards, I have a bunch of cards in hand already, I'll just save this as a heal, which I'm sure is going through his head.
Still a pretty tricky board for Ostkaka to deal with here. He could choose to use Alexstrasza like we mentioned. He could also, decide to draw some cards, perhaps fish for the Flame Strike, but here he's just going to, freeze the board. Oh man, Mana! Millhouse Mana Storm. Oh man. But
He's always in the shredder you least expect him.
Exactly.
Oh, and he did, important to note, Ostkaka did get Archmage Antonidas last turn.
Right.
So Archmage Antonidas will allow him to start chaining low mana spells such as Frostbolt, Ice Lance, start putting a whole bunch of fireballs in his hands, and then over a couple of turns, use Alexstrasza, and then look to kill out his opponent from there.
Maybe he doesn't even need Alexstrasza at this point. With Antonidas, he might just slam Antonidas, go with the Frostbolt Ice Lance, get 2 fireballs, deal 7 damage.
Right.
And he knows double Ancient of Lore. Oh, he actually seen 1 Ancient of Lore, so he expects the second one is somewhere there.
Right.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Alexstrasza is actually not super relevant in terms of just doing raw damage to pinpingho. Pinpingho's already at 21, and Alexstrasza would just bring him to 15 health, and he would still keep the armor. So not necessarily super relevant at the moment. It might just be easier, as you said, to go the route where you just try to win through Archmage Antonidas.
Yeah, also the second Ice Block will be really important for Ostkaka because then he can maybe Fireball, Ice Block, he'll gain 1 more turn, and if he picks one of the normal Fireballs, and he will have 1 more because of the Antonidas.
Yeah. At the end of the day, pinpingho just realizes that his hero power is the most important thing that he needs to, you know, keep using over and over again.
Oh.
And that Flame Strike is going to clear the board.
Yeah, this means the board is cleared, as you said. It's 28 points of health, Dr. Boom, but you know, 28 is a lot.
What a rough time to be Millhouse Mana Storm. You pop out of the shirt, you get frozen, then you immediately just get Flame Strike. Like, why all the gnome hate? Jeez.
Yeah, there you go. Millhouse Mana Storm might not have perhaps been the best 2-mana drop. Something with a Death Rattle might have been better. But yeah, like you said, Robert, this Doomsayer might be catching some bombs.
Yeah, let's see how much work he's willing to put in. How good is this Doomsayer? How good is it?
This Doomsayer, 0-5 silenced.
Yeah, how much football does he play? Is he used to, you know, catching a lot of bombs?
I think it's fine. The problem is there's 2 bombs, and with Salvager and a combo, it's a lot of damage, and you don't want to get your Ice Block destroyed.
It's really just a counting game here. Ostkaka's thinking, how many turns do I need to kill pinpingho?
Right.
And he also needs to factor in every turn he needs to, you know, set up the combo is 1 more armor for pinpingho. So Ostkaka here is just going to, oh wow, remove the Dr. Broom.
Yep,
grab
generate 2
fireballs.
fireballs. Yeah, this is, I was thinking about this. This is actually just, when you look at his hand, I think the best play. This keeps him safe, I believe, from dying to combo, or popping the block even.
Right.
A little bit of math here, but...
Oh, second Salvager, but double Innervate was already used.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the more I look at this play, the better I feel about it, because now the Druid has to deal with Antonidas. You can't just leave it around.
Right.
Yeah.
Druid actually doesn't, compared to other classes, really doesn't have convenient answers. They obviously have Keeper of the Grove, which you've, I believe, seen 1 of now. I don't know if he's seen the second, but he's seen 1. And there is nothing like a Sap. There's nothing, you know, like an Execute. So the Druid has to play it very fairly to try to get rid of Archmage Antonidas.
So pinpingho has a couple of options. He can use Force Nature and 1 of the bombs to clear. He can use Savage Roar and attack it with the face if the bombs don't hit it. If you just use the Savager, he will be able to play Ancient of Lore or Azure Drake. So this means if he decides for that play, he can probably draw first, just in case.
Or he can just hit both of the Boombots to Antonidas and kill it.
Yeah, that's a valid. Yeah, absolutely.
That happens a lot, remember?
I don't like to talk about the senseless crime committed against Azure Drake.
Okay.
It just hurts my heart.
So let's see where the Boombot hits here, and oh, that goes to the face.
There we
and
go.
no!
Wow.
And that's really important because now he's gonna take that 5 damage from Antonidas.
Not only that, it's gonna remove all his armor, and pinpingho is sitting at 19 health.
And there is an Ice Block and Alexstrasza.
Let's see, it's obviously he doesn't have a way to. Okay, so there's no way he kills him this turn.
Right?
Might just be okay to Alexstrasza.
Yeah, sure. You put an 8 on the board.
And you deal 4 damage.
I mean, you could dig deeper into your deck with Arcane Intellect, which is what he's ultimately going to do, but at that point, I'm not really sure what you're looking for aside from more burn, which is actually pretty reasonable.
A Fireball and a Thalnos.
Yeah.
I like it. You can actually use Thalnos for double Fireball next turn.
Right, and so the Fireball face here does set up lethal.
It also telegraphs that you're going for lethal.
Right.
It tells him straight up, hey, I have enough damage to kill you now, so we're going to start throwing fireballs. So it might trigger the Ancient of Lore to come out.
And then you
Start
use
to-
Alexstrasza.
Right.
Yeah, that might happen.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting dynamic.
Yeah, Alexstrasza will be a good counter to Ancient of Lore. You put a 5-5, they put an 8-8.
Yeah, looking at this hand from Ostkaka, I think the Ice Lance is actually used just a dead card now. Ostkaka already used double Frostbolts, so all his damage is from minions and from the 2 fireballs.
It's also important to note, and this is a very minor thing, but Ostkaka chose to use the fireball, though, one of the fireballs that was created by Antonidas, because it doesn't necessarily reveal that he has more fireballs. So
Yeah, exactly.
obviously, pinpingho probably suspects them. But when I play this matchup on ladder, it's usually one of those things where I try to remember to use the fireball so that, you know, I'm not just saying, like, I do have 3 to 4 fireballs.
Sure,
Oh,
information is key. And wow, Ostkaka is actually down to 1 card.
One last card. This means like he got that fireball. Like even without the fireball, he still had a great. He was in a great shape because he's seen low flip, he's seen double ancient floor. Druid has no way to heal through all that fireballs.
Double fireball face.
Yeah, he pulls the trigger here with the hero power, puts down pinpingho to 5. If he uses his own shapeshift, that would be 6. So he's dead to fireball. He even has the tolerance there.
And yeah, that's it. I don't think pinpingho can actually power the block and kill his opponent. The fatigue damage does not set in next turn.
Right.
And Ostkaka has his fireball, so pinpingho is going to drop a game here.
It would have been really tempting for Ostkaka, too, to play down this is maybe something like Blood Mage Thalanos, because it's just strictly speaking more damage than the hero power. But as you pointed out, then it interacts with fatigue in a way that could have potentially been problematic for him. So he just realizes he doesn't need it. He has enough damage. And this is why when I say Ostkaka is such a good technical player, this is what I'm talking about. Like you fall into these habits sometimes when playing Hearthstone where you're like, oh, I just want to do more damage. That's what I'm doing. And you know, he understood exactly how much damage he needed, did not put himself in any kind of problematic situation. He's going to go up 2-0 in the series as a result of this incredibly intelligent play.
And that was such an important win because the Freeze Mage was supposed to have a bad matchup versus the whole lineup from pinpingho, and now he secured the win. He's down to his Oil Rogue, and he only needs to win 1 game. He has 3 chances to do it.
And that's, honestly, that matchup, it cannot be overstated. It's so incredibly difficult for the Freeze Mage. So very, very, just super good play from Ostkaka. And here he is, 1 game away from advancing.
Yeah, it was very impressive. There was a point where pinpingho had, you know, 5 or 6 minions even on the board, and you know, Ostkaka just find a way to deal with all of them while still not fatiguing and destroying his opponent at the same time.
Absolutely. So guys, being pinpingho, what do you think you bring this time? You know Ostkaka is going to bring Rogue. What will be the best matchup?
I'm going with Hunter.
You're going with Hunter?
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So I think you just need to bring out the Shaman now, you know, get the confidence back at your side.
Sure, that's actually, you know what, I'm going to change my answer. I like that. You are the Shaman. It is time. This could potentially be your last game if you lose. You want to play that Shaman, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he did say that Element's gonna destroy Ostkaka.
Yeah.
So we heard a lot from pinpingho. We've seen an interview with him. What I want to see and what I want to hear is Ostkaka saying about what he thinks about this match.
When I was younger, I moved around a lot. I've lived in Miami, New York, Indonesia, and Mexico City. I think I attended like 6 different schools. Most of them were international, some Swedish. And it's really been quite an experience, you know. I've always had to sort of adapt to other people and their sort of lifestyle. And yeah, looking back on it, it's been a really good experience. So when I was playing competitive soccer, it was really more just for fun. Of course, I spent a lot of time and, you know, put a lot of effort into it. It sort of came naturally as well. Like, I mean, I was not only playing soccer like during the evening, but also like all the time during the day, on all the breaks, balancing school and soccer practice. Of course, you know, it's a lot of time you have to put into it, and you don't have a lot of time for other stuff. And so it's actually quite similar to like my Hearthstone schedule right now. I'm just, you know, trying to balance everything, you know, the practice and, you know, actually sleeping and eating and everything, just balancing it all. Usually whenever there's a camera on me or even just a microphone, I usually get quite nervous, and you know, as soon as like my heart rate increases, it's just not as comfortable as if I'm sitting at home playing. So I tend to rely a little bit more on instincts when I'm playing in tournaments, and it's usually not that good, but you know, so far I think I've been playing pretty on point, so I think it's fine. My youngest brother is 13 years old. His name's William. He goes to school in Sweden. He's, you know, really cool and supporting me and all this gaming stuff. And my older brother, Marcus, he lives in London. He's 22. I give my little brother some deck lists every now and then, and he asks me about the game. Of course, I'm like really willing to help him. Of course, it's fun for me as well. But it's mostly about like the time. I don't always have time for everything. At first, my parents were not like that supportive. I mean, they weren't really sure how serious it was. And of course, as I was growing up, you know, it was always your job to, you know, sort of tell me to stop playing and, you know, do my homework and whatever. But as soon as I started, you know, actually making money off of this, and I was like, really good at it, you know, they started respecting it. So my parents are actually just figuring out Twitch, and you know, it's really cool for them. It's like I'm watching TV, you know, I'm playing the World Championships, and they think it's really, really cool that I'm on this huge stage in front of so many viewers. I actually had a lot of preparation going into this event, and I always had my teammates practicing with me, you know, the whole way around. They were always, you know, questioning my deck choices and everything, and so I really had my teammates there the whole time preparing with me. If I were to give advice to an upcoming pro player, I'd say that just keep practicing, keep playing preferably the same deck, and it's like a high skill deck as well. Just keep playing it until you can sort of perfect it, and then look into playing tournaments and showing what you're worth. I really like the game. It's really like just endless amounts of skill that you can put into it, and at the same time I'm of course really good at it, so that's really fun.
It's so great that family supports Ostkaka.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's kind of one of the reoccurring storylines I feel like we've seen all throughout the championship, regardless of region, is players getting into Hearthstone very seriously, making a real go at an esports career, parents not necessarily being with it in the beginning, and then coming to kind of understand like how it actually can be a career and how it's something that these players are very passionate about, and kind of how esports as a whole is becoming more mainstream. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. The support. Amaz, do you have the support as well?
Yeah, I guess so.